The banquet hall pulsed with light and laughter, a grand space filled with nobles, dressed in shimmering silks and heavy brocades. Crystal goblets clinked together, voices rose in mirth, and golden chandeliers bathed the room in a warm glow. Amid the luxury and indulgence stood Maria, a woman who did not belong. She kept her hands clasped before her, knuckles white against the rough fabric of her plain dress. The laughter that echoed around her wasn't warm. It wasn't kind. It curled at the edges with something sharper, something cruel. Lady Evelyn rose gracefully from her chair, her eyes gleaming with amusement. She moved with practiced ease, her silk skirts whispering against the polished floor as she turned to address her guests. "My dear friends," she said, her voice smooth as honey, "we have dined, we have drunk, but what is an evening without entertainment?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Evelyn's lips curled as she lifted a slender hand and gestured toward Maria. "This humble woman," she continued, "has a gift, or so I have been told, a voice like no other, and I, for one, am most curious to hear it." Maria stiffened, her throat tightening. A cold hush settled over her skin. She had never claimed to be a singer. She had only hummed once, softly, in the kitchens where she worked, unaware she was being listened to. And now here she was, a lamb thrown to wolves. A chuckle sounded from somewhere in the crowd. A lord leaned forward, resting his chin on his palm. "Well, girl, don't keep us waiting." A sharp trill of notes rang out from the grand piano in the corner, playful and mocking. The young man at the keys smirked as he ran his fingers over the ivory, taunting her with an opening she had not asked for. Maria's pulse pounded. Her mouth was dry, the weight of every gaze pressed against her, waiting for her humiliation. The air in the hall turned heavy, thick with expectation. She could run, she could turn on her heel and disappear, let them laugh, let them say what they wanted. Or she could open her mouth. Maria took a single breath, slow and steady, and then a single note cut through the silence like a blade. Low, trembling at first, then rising, swelling into something more. The smirks vanished. The laughter died mid-breath. The hall, moments ago alive with cruel amusement, froze in place. Maria's voice soared. It was unlike anything they had expected. Rich, deep and powerful, it filled every corner of the room, wrapping around the crystal chandeliers, pressing against the gilded walls. It was not the meek, broken sound they had anticipated. It was not the pitiful whisper of a woman too afraid to face her mockers. It was something else entirely, something raw, something untamed. The young man at the piano let his hands slip from the keys, his smirk fading into wide-eyed disbelief. The noblewomen who had whispered behind their gloved hands now sat motionless, their jeweled fingers frozen mid-gesture. The lords who had leaned forward, waiting for her to stumble, now sat rooted in place, their wine forgotten. Maria didn't falter. She let her voice rise higher, rich with something deeper than melody, something that spoke of sorrow, of longing, of strength forged in the quiet corners of the world they had never bothered to see. Her song wasn't just music, it was a challenge, a reckoning. Lady Evelyn's fingers tightened around the stem of her glass. The wine inside trembled with each note. She opened her mouth as if to speak, to stop whatever spell Maria was casting over her guests, but no words came. A shudder ran through the crowd. A few gasps broke the silence. An elderly duke, his eyes misted with something unspoken, whispered, "By the heavens." And then Maria reached the final note. It hung in the air, shimmering like the last flicker of a candle before the dark. Silence, a silence deeper than any before it. Then, as if breaking free from some invisible hold, someone stood. A chair scraped against the marble floor. A single pair of hands began to clap, then another, and another. The hall erupted. Applause crashed against the walls like thunder. Some rose to their feet, others whispered to one another in stunned awe. A noble woman dabbed at her eyes with a lace handkerchief, unable to explain the tears. Maria exhaled, her chest rising and falling, her fingers trembling at her sides. She had not sung for their approval, she had sung for herself. But as she lifted her head, she saw Lady Evelyn, still seated, still silent. The woman who had set this trap now sat in the very center of it, trapped herself. Maria met her gaze, unwavering, and then, with quiet grace, she turned and walked away.